Peninsula by launching a series of assaults against Turkish strongpoints. It was hoped that these attacks would lead to a decisive victory. The ensuing battles were the largest and most costly in the 8-month-long Gallipoli campaign. All the Allied attacks ended in heartbreaking failure and produced heavy losses on both sides. Many of the sites of the bloody struggle, places such as Lone Pine, the Neck, Chunuk Bair and Hill 60, sadly became familiar names in Australia and New Zealand. Today, we commemorate the Battle of Lone Pine, which cost the Australians over 2,200 casualties and more than 800 killed. We warmly welcome the family of Trooper Frederick Arthur Bird, who lost his life in the battle. In remembering his service and sacrifice, we honour all those who fought at the Battle of Lone Pine. Today also marks the 50th anniversary of the Battle of Soi Chow Phar, a battle between the 7th Battalion, the Royal Australian Regiment, and the 274th Regiment of Viet Cong. The two forces fought for several hours at close quarters in dense jungle amid a heavy monsoon rain. Australian artillery proved decisive and the Viet Cong were forced to withdraw. In terms of Australian casualties, 5 men were killed in action, 1 died of wounds and 20 were wounded. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony around Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors. Please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, We will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Trooper Frederick Arthur Bird. Frederick Bird was born in 1897, one of 6 children of James and Ada Bird of Yarram in the Gippsland region in Victoria. Known as Fred to his family and friends, he attended Yarram State School before joining his father in grazing sheep on family holdings at Abberton East and nearby Waranga. Fred Bird enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force at Yarram in September 1914. And after several weeks of training at Broadmeadows camps on the outskirts of Melbourne, sailed for Egypt as an original member of the 4th Light Horse Regiment. As the infantry encamped in Egypt embarked for the fighting in the Dardanelles in early April the following year, men of the Light Horse regiments remained in camp and trained for future offensive action. As Australian and New Zealand casualties on Gallipoli continued to rise at an alarming rate, the men of the 4th Light Horse Regiment were sent in as dismounted infantry reinforcements to help defend the Anzac positions. After landing on Gallipoli in late May, the regiment was broken up to provide squadrons of infantry reinforcements. It was not until the 11th of June that the 4th Light Horse Regiment was reconstituted as a unit, after which they were used to defend positions near Ryrie's Post on the southern end of Bolton's Ridge. Here, the men of the 4th Light Horse Regiment were involved in a number of demonstrations against the Ottoman positions in preparation for a major offensive being planned for early August. One of those demonstrations at Ryrie's Post occurred on the night of the 6th of August 1915, with the regiment intended to draw Ottoman reserves and fire away from nearby Lone Pine. During the engagement, Bird was seriously wounded in the head by shrapnel. He was carried by stretcher bearers to a nearby dressing station, but succumbed to his wounds. Aged 18 at the time of his death, Fred Bird was buried at the nearby beach cemetery at Anzac, where he rests today. His grieving parents requested that one word appear on his headstone as an epitaph: peace. A year later, a member of his family included the following epitaph in the local newspaper in his memory: Men of Anzac, not in vain, all the battle, sweat and pain, of the brave young lives that fell, gash and torn by shot and shell. Frederick Bird's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, amongst more than 60,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Trooper Frederick Arthur Bird, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
They shall grow old, they shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. And at the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. Thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and good evening.